I'm going to jump right in so we can get through all this today. I want to tell you guys a little bit about my background first. I grew up in a family of 10 kids, moved all over the United States, lived in Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, California, and then came out to Utah. My dad was FBI, so if you've seen the Meet the Parents, that's kind of my dad. So my future plan was that I was going to come out and go to BYU, marry that guy, and have all those kids. And that was literally the game plan. So I did come out to BYU at 17. I got engaged at 19, did the Provo thing, and got married, had 2 little kids, had to drop out of college to be able to support putting my husband through at the time, which ladies in the room, don't do that. Like, both of you need to finish, y'all need to finish. And ended up as a divorced single mom with 2 kids trying to figure out how was I going to support a family. So at that point in my life, this is a little bit of where I was. And I tell you that backstory because a lot of people, I think, sit in colleges and think, oh my gosh, I remember speakers used to come in when I was at college and they'd tell their stories and I'd be like, okay, that's really cool for you, but I could never do that. Like, I mean, that's like, yeah, you're like the golden child, whatever. But I tell you the backstory because I wasn't. Like, I wasn't the golden child. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea how to support myself or my kids, and I did it anyway. So I think that's an important thing to relate to, because the fact you guys are here and still in school says you're already like way ahead of the game from where I was. So no excuses. At that point, I had to figure out what was I going to do. And a lot of times people say, well, how do you decide what to do? And these are some of the things I tell them, look at what you're good at. What are the things that you're naturally good at? What are your God-given talents? What are the things you enjoy doing? What connections do you have access to? Like, is there things in your upbringing or people you've lived by or things like that that would open up doors for you? So those are some of the things to kind of look at in your life, because I really believe there's experiences that will push us forward towards something if we pay attention to them. Everyone's told me do something you love, which for me was shopping and bubble baths, and I didn't know how to make money off that stuff, so I was like, this could be a problem. Other people said do something you believe in. Now, I think especially in Utah and the culture in Utah, we're really kind of ingrained to do things we believe in, right? To do things for a cause and a purpose. And I think that a lot of times we work harder if it's for somebody else other than ourselves, especially women, right? We tend to always kind of put more into it if it's for somebody else's benefit. And I do think there's a lot of success that comes when you're doing something you believe in, okay? The other thing is just to do something. My grandpa, who's now passed away, one of my favorite people in life, he used to say all the time, get up, do something, do anything, just make a start. Right? We spend a lot of time in life talking about it, trying to perfect the plan, and then we never actually do anything. So his point was just start. It doesn't have to be perfect, just start, get moving, and that's how you're going to find things along the way. One of the best pieces of advice I got at that point in my life was someone said, what would you do if you weren't afraid? It's a really powerful question, right? Because it kind of eliminates all the other voices in your head. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And for me, I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and make a goal poster. How many people think goal posters are dumb? It's okay, I'm totally not going to be offended. Raise your hand. Be honest. I know a few of y'all do. Someone in the back. I saw you holding that sign. It looked more like a mug shot than a happy shot. So, but the reason I asked that question is because, look, a lot of people think they're dumb, and I'm not going to say I used to think they had any credibility either. But by the time I'm done talking today, I want to come back to you and see how you feel about the goal poster. Okay? So I sat down and I made a goal poster, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to be an entrepreneur, because back in my day, that's what you were if you had no idea what you were going to do. They didn't have like a degree in entrepreneurship. That didn't exist at all. It was just like, if you were going to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, okay, be an entrepreneur, right? So I thought, well, I'll do that. And I put down that I wanted to win the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, because that was like the prestigious award back then for entrepreneurs. I wanted to be able to do well. I wanted to meet Bill Gates, because Windows was like new. So sad. I'm so old. And I wanted to be on the cover of magazines. So those are the things that I had on my goal poster. And I put that on the wall and didn't think about it again for a long time. And we're going to come back to that at the end of my talk, okay? But I think it's a really important thing for you guys to be thinking about, is this goal poster. So how to find opportunities. Everyone says, well, if you're going to start a company, how do you find an opportunity, right? How do you know what's there? I would say the most important thing is pay attention to what other people are saying. Every time you hear a complaint out of someone's mouth, if you hear that complaint enough times over, it means there's a really good business opportunity there. Because that means that everyone's struggling with the same issue, and if you can solve that issue for them, you're going to have a good business that can make money. Okay? So listen to what's out there on the complaints. Think differently. Try to think of unique ideas. It's not like, okay, we do it this way because, especially today in the world you guys are growing up on, technology is changing so fast every day that what was done yesterday as a process or procedure, within a week, there could be something new that totally changes the capacity to do that in a different way. It's that fast. Back when I was in college, the only cell phone out was the Motorola brick that was like this big, and you had to be like seriously rolling in the dough to carry that thing because it was expensive, right? But things change so fast from then to now, and all those changes open up doors for, let's look at something that's been done this way for a long time. How can we do it differently? What's the size of the market? That's a really big one. A lot of people, especially if you've grown up in small towns, right? A lot of times they aren't thinking about huge markets, right? It's not the world they grew up in. You need to think about a problem that's so big. The more people that have that problem, the bigger opportunity you have. Because as an investor, I'm looking for someone where if they only get 1% of the market, I still make money. Does that make sense? But if you have to go win 90% of the market for it to be a successful business, that's a really big risk. And probably investors aren't going to take that risk. So the bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. And then use your talents on it, right? Focus on the impact it can have and use your talents. In 1996, I started my first company. I did it in a little 10 by 10 room in my house with $23,000 that I raised from my dad and my brother and my uncle. And it was the hardest money I ever got because my dad is a freaking tightwad, excuse my French, but he really is. He did not believe in giving money for anything. So that was my hardest money I raised. I went on later to raise millions of dollars for investments, but that literally to this day still remains the toughest money I ever raised. But that's what started my journey. Now at that point in my life, I had a lot of fear. I mean, I was a young girl, I was a single mom, LDS in Provo, Utah, dropped out of college. I did not fit the mold in any way, shape, or form of what's the norm, right? So that was really scary for me. And I had to learn how to overcome a lot of fears. I think one of the first things I had to overcome is the fear of what other people thought. Because again, I didn't fit that mold, so that was like super intimidating for me to look around and be like, oh, what are they gonna think? And I worried so much what everybody thought, right? That influenced my opinion of myself. And I realized I needed to quit worrying about that and worry about just what God thought. In my case, whatever your higher power is you believe in, but for me it was God. And I thought, I'm just gonna worry about what he thinks because that's a lot easier to control than what everybody else thinks. And it really helped me to stop paying attention to all these things that will sway you really easily, okay? So the other thing I learned is that you're made up of two things. There's the way we see ourselves today, and then the way we see our ideal self if we could be whatever we wanted to be. And there's a little trick. You guys have all heard the term fake it till you make it. It actually really does work. What I would do is I was like, okay, who's the person that I would ideally be? And this is her. So I thought, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. When I need to go do something scary or intimidating that I feel like is beyond myself, I'm just gonna close my eyes for a second. I'm gonna Wonder Woman out, go in the room, be her, do what she would do, come back out, I can go back to being insecure Amy again. Got me through more scary times than you can ever imagine in my life. So y'all just need to think of your ideal little superhero, whatever. By the way, ladies, June 17th, movie coming out, I'm just saying. Super excited, super excited. But who wouldn't want to be her, right? But it really did, it helped me be something that I was bigger than myself at that point in my life. And it helped me get through those intimidating moments. Then I had to come over the fear of a dumb idea, right? Because being an entrepreneur, you're like, what if my idea is dumb? What if nobody likes it? So let's talk about a few dumb ideas. How many of you guys have heard of the Slanket? The Snuggie, the Slanket, there's a bunch of different brands, knockoffs, yeah. Do you guys know how that got started? You want to talk about a dumb idea? It was a kid in college playing video games and it was really cold where he went to college. So he got cold, so he called his mom, because every young man calls his mother. And she took a sleeping bag and cut holes in it for him so he could put his arms through and play his video games, but then his arms got cold. So she sewed sleeves on it, and that literally is how the Slanket got born. Now, is that a dumb idea? Yes, but it's making millions and millions of dollars, so is it really? It's not so dumb, right? Another one, goggles. They're goggles for your dog, because we all need that. Again, sold at every PetSmart around the country, making a lot of money. Pillow pets, how many of y'all have them? All the men are like, I'm so not admitting it. I guarantee, ladies, a bunch of these guys have those pillow pets. My kids have them. Over $300 million a year in sales. Dumb idea? Yeah, dumb idea, but it's making a ton of money. So, 2 men in a truck. This was a mom who had 2 boys in high school. She wanted to keep them out of trouble, so she bought a used truck and was sending them out to do odd jobs for people. They left to go to college, grew up, went to college, and all of a sudden she started getting calls. So she hired a bunch of other boys to come in, and they're doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year in sales. Again, dumb idea. This is one of my favorites. It's talking about take a bad situation, turn it into something good. A kid was engaged, and she dumped him and gave the ring back. So he tried to return the ring, and when he went to go take it back, they said they'd give him 20% of what he paid for it. And so he was really upset. So he started a website called I Do Now I Don't, where you could actually go in and sell the wedding ring. Over the years, he's upgraded it. You can also leave videos of how she ruined your life and broke your heart. Dumb idea, right? The fear of being too young. I mean, we all know the story of Zuckerberg, so I won't get into it, but look how young he was when he started Facebook. There's all these fears we have, but if you look at the examples that are out there, there's no reason to have those fears. The other thing I had to learn was how not to be afraid to make mistakes. Look, you guys are going to make mistakes. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. I have made almost every mistake known to man, except for when it comes to integrity. That's one area I just won't make the mistakes in, okay? But the way you're going to learn is you're going to make mistakes. When I was 17, I got dropped off at BYU. Now, this mistake I personally blame my parents for, because I was 17, I'd never had a bank account in my life because my dad would do all that for us, right, growing up. And so they dropped me off, and I was like, oh, sweet, there's checks. I can just write these out, and they're going to cash them for me. I didn't know you had to have money in the account. No one talked me through that part of the equation. So a couple hundred checks have bounced later. They had to fly my dad in because I was too young to get put in jail for it because I was only 17, so heavens. Dumb, I mean, look, I made a lot of stupid mistakes. Now, by the way, I've more than made up for it with Zions Bank. They love me now, so. I mean, my fire alarm batteries when I was a single mom went off for years before I figured out what that beeping was. We just learned to ignore it and tune it. I mean, dumb stuff, right? Didn't drain the sprinklers my first year being single, froze the lawn, ruined it. I've just made about every dumb mistake you can. But once I make it once, I learn from it, right? And that's the important part is when you make a mistake, number one, you just gotta own it, okay? Own it. I learned that part when I was 17 or probably 15. I was in high school. I'd been grounded quite a bit for coming in later than I was supposed to. My dad had a curfew for us, and if you didn't get home to turn off the alarm before it woke him up, you were toast. So it was like this problem growing up. Got grounded all the time. And I'd always come home with my excuses, right? Oh, no, it wasn't my fault. So-and-so was driving or blah, 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 whatever happened. And I always had an excuse, always got grounded. And then one night I came in and coasted down the driveway thinking I was all smooth into the garage so it wouldn't make any noise and wake up the dadster, and got in there, and there he was at the top of the stairs in his robe. And I knew I was in trouble. I was like, dude, here we go again. And this time I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna own it. So I went up there and I was like, you know what, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm late. Totally my fault. I screwed up. I shouldn't have done this. This has happened way too much. So here's what I'm gonna do to make sure it doesn't happen anymore, and I'm really sorry for what I did. And he was like, hey, go to bed. And I was like, wait, so I'm not grounded? It's awesome, right? But it taught me this really big lesson. Like his response when I just owned it was night and day from when I tried to make excuses or get around it. And so I started to apply that in everything in the business. Every time we screwed up or made a mistake, I would own it. I was the first person to jump on the phone and tell a customer, I'm really sorry we made a mistake. Even before they discovered it, which was like unheard of to them. They were like, whoa, who does that? So we'd pick up the phone, we said, we made a mistake, we're sorry. This is how we're gonna fix it. This is what we learned from it, and here's what we're gonna do, put safeguards in place to make sure it never happens again. And you will be amazed how quick people will forgive you. It'll shock you, super fast. This will help you in business succeed more than anything else will, because everyone's gonna make a mistake. It's how you handle it when you make it that really matters. Okay, so make the mistakes, learn from them, but don't make the same mistake twice, because that's just dumb. If you make the same, you're not gonna get ahead if you keep making the same one again, you're just stuck. I think when it comes to failure, everyone says, oh, were you afraid to fail? For me, it's not a failure if I learned something that made me smarter, right? So if something went wrong and didn't get what I wanted, at the end of the day, if it made me smarter, to me that's not a failure, because I am now so much smarter. So I consider myself today like incredibly smart because I've made every dumb mistake there is, and I'm never making those ones again. The next thing, it's how you handle mistakes too. So when I was a single mom, I had taken my little kids out boating. We got invited down to Lake Powell, and they had this amazing trip, and they were so excited, and their self-confidence went way up, and I was like, oh, I gotta buy a boat, and then I was like, but I'm a girl, and I don't wanna have to take care of it myself, like strong, independent women at work, don't wanna take care of a boat by myself. Like that's like on the man job list in my house, right? So I was like, but I really want a boat. Finally, I was like, I'm just gonna buy one. So I went and looked at a few of them and found the one that I wanted, and it was a little bit much, and I thought, well, I'll just buy the conservative one. But now I had a boat, so I was all excited. Take the kids out, I'm on a date. We get out in the middle of Jordanelle in Park City, and the boat stops working. And I'm like, wow, I just bought this thing. Like, why isn't it working, right? And so we're checking everything, and my date's checking the engine, and the kids are laughing because they are fully aware that I didn't read the manual because, there was no big print and pictures, so who wants to read that? So my date looks over, and he's like, you did put the plug in this thing, right? And I'm like, plug? Why would you need a plug? Why would you have a hole in a boat that you have to plug? That is the dumbest thing ever. Because like if a woman designed a boat, there would be no hole in it because we know what's going on in the water, right, lady? Are you with me, ladies? Right? And apparently there is a hole in the boat with a plug. So the boat started to sink. And here's the deal, that stuff's gonna happen, right? You're gonna have those moments, a humiliating experience for me, right? And you're gonna have days your butt's stuck in that tree and all you can do is pray somebody comes along and helps you get out of it, because that is just the predicament you're gonna find yourself in. But when it does happen, laugh about it, and then just go buy the pink boat you wanted in the first place, which is what I did. Because things turn out best for those who make the best of the way things turn out. Love this quote, one of my very favorite quotes. Things turn out best for those who make the best of the way things turn out. I'll let you guys snap that with your phones or whatever you do with it. Love that quote, and it's really true. Because things are going to go wrong, you're going to mess up, learn from it, But laugh about it, move forward smarter, okay? That's best advice I can give you on that stuff. I want to talk a little bit about MediConnect Global. So that was the company that I grew and sold more recently. We had close to 2,000 employees worldwide by the time we sold that company. We were doing about $90 million in revenue, so it was a really large company that we'd grown. And I'm going to tell you some of the lessons, the secrets that we had to our success, okay? Some things that helped us a lot. The first one was we had a primary rule at that company, and that was do what's right, let the consequence follow. Now, I'm going to explain that. When we first started out, on my whiteboard in my office, we put do what's right. And that's all it said. And it was just a reminder that we were going to do the right thing, because integrity, that's how I was raised, and it matters to me a lot for lots of different reasons. But I really believe that at the core, if you try to do the right things, you're going to have mistakes happen, you're going to have things go wrong, but at the end of the day, you're always going to be successful if you just try to do the right things all the time, no matter what. Now, what happened is I added that second phrase after a while because we would get in these situations where someone else is going in the gray. So let me give you an example. You're turning in a request for an RFP. You're responding to an RFP, another company, you want to land their business. And you know your competitor over here is a bunch of scoundrels that are going to lie, and they're going to write stuff down that's not true on that response. And you're like, oh man, they're going to lie on this question. I know they're going to lie. So if I'm going to beat them at that, because they don't deserve to win by lying, that's wrong, right? So I'm going to have to lie too, otherwise they're going to win it, and that's not right. I'm trying to make it right. That's the kind of games we play in our head. That's the kind of areas where you start to convince yourself it's okay to do the wrong thing. You find all kinds of reasons to justify it, right? And you're like, but if I don't lie like they're going to lie, now I'm going to lose the deal. And then there's people's jobs at stake, and we're trying to do good things here and all these things. So we had to go and add to the board, let the consequence follow, because we needed ourselves to be so committed to doing the right thing that even if the consequence sucked, which it is going to a lot of the time, doing the right thing, a lot of times you're going to not get what you want. That's just a fact. And you have to be okay with that. Like, you have to be okay with that. And that's why we added up there, let the consequence follow. We made a pact with each other that whenever someone started to think we're going to go into the gray, we'd be like, aha, nah. Got to do the right thing. And you need people around you that will help you do that, because all of us get sucked into that. Guaranteed. How many men in here when their wives say, do I look fat in these jeans? Do you do what's right, let the consequence follow? Probably not. So you need to, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all get in that mode, well, it's for the right reason right now. You got to do the right thing. Because success is going to come and go, but your integrity is forever. And it may sound like some fluffy thing, but financially, this has more value to it than any other business advice someone could give you. There were so many times in my career where, because I had a reputation of integrity and because people knew that they could trust me, they were able to help me financially in ways they never would have. We had one investor at one point drop out a night before we were closing on a deal. A night before for $1 million. Try coming up with $1 million in one night. Not the easiest thing to do. But because there was someone who knew me, I told them our situation, they handed me a check without even the paperwork or due diligence because they trusted me. It will end up being worth money to you, I promise you, in the end, okay? The next thing we learned is to operate within your means. Great doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I am super cheap in business, not so much with my shoes, but in business, very, very cheap, okay? And so, but what I learned is there's so many people these days that go out and they raise all this big money and they, tout, oh, we have these huge valuations. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you sell it for and what you make. The more money you raise, the less you're gonna make. So try to do it cheap, okay? Go on the cheap. There's lots of ways to do it these days. For example, we were a company that was really big on security. We had healthcare records, medical data. We were doing medical data analytics on that. And so we could not allow people to bring cell phones to work. Okay, we could not allow them to get on the internet at work. Try hiring a bunch of people your age and saying, oh, no cell phone and no internet. It's like, they're like, you might as well put me in prison, right? They think you're dying. It's like a camp. So we had to figure out how are we gonna make that cool? How are we gonna make it cool and how are we gonna get people to come in? So we realized what's cool is like James Bond, right? And Jason Bourne and the CIA, because you don't get to bring your cell phone or get on the internet when you work for the CIA. No, you don't. And it's still cool. So we were like, okay, we're gonna rebrand. And we didn't want to spend money on it. So we just got together and everybody got creative and we came up with things like rebranding the whole company theme to, instead of finance department, you worked for the Treasury Enforcement Agency, because that just like sounded so much cooler, right? And so instead of HR, it was the Office of Personnel Management. Instead of the call center, it was Retrieval Operations Center, like The Rock. So we tried to rebrand, just doing little things like that that really kind of painted a picture. We also did some employee fun branding where we gave them like the logos and everything else were done different, and we started to do this just internally at first. And then all of a sudden it started catching on, and it started painting this message of this security that was cool. And so that helped a lot with the business, and it was all very cheap. So these are some of to tell you how cheap it was, we only had 1.5 people in our marketing department, which is like unheard of. Because my biggest marketing department came from Alta High School. because the high school kids are so much smarter about what's cool than adults are. And that is a true fact. And they'll do anything for a $4.99 Little Caesars hot and ready pizza. So we would have little parties at my house because my kids were in high school. I'd get them all together. I'd be like, I need a new branding campaign. What do you guys got for me? So many of our ideas came from that. And I would really recommend, if you're starting businesses, tap the younger generation, because they know. And now it's like even high school is kind of like, out of not the cool, they're on the border edge of being non-cool, so it's like junior high now. So just pay attention to who can get the most likes on their Instagram or whatever. We did screensavers on their computer screens to make it look like CTU headquarters. If you killed it on the job at MetaConnect, you got your star on the wall of distinction. Like killed it on the job at CIA. We did these little things. And then for Christmas, I bought them these t-shirts, these MCG shirts, because we thought that's kind of cool for MetaConnect Global, and that kind of looks like spy-ish, right? And I thought it'd just be like a fun t-shirt, and they'd probably never wear it because company branded stuff. And all of a sudden, they weren't just wearing it. They wanted other stuff too. And I'm going to come back to that. A billboard, again, high school kids idea. This is what awesome looks like. And that was one of our sales guys who worked on a mink farm, which apparently builds very good arms, so he was great for the poster. These were different campaigns we used. Now, we had another problem at MetaConnect we were trying to solve, which was when we went to go hire people, a lot of people said, oh, a healthcare technology company, I don't have healthcare technology experience, so I'm not going to apply there. And the problem for me was, I could teach you a skill, but I cannot teach you values. If you don't have good values, I can't teach you that stuff. Like you by this age, you got to have them yourself. That's a decision you've made. So I was like, how do I get people to apply that maybe wouldn't have otherwise applied, right? And I wanted people that would come in and have the values of integrity, respect, attitude, dependable, goes the extra mile, right? I wanted those people, and then I would teach them whatever I had to teach them. So we decided to do a campaign, and I went out to the employees and I said, look, we need a way to get people to apply for any position. Let's come up with an idea. We came up with the idea of doing the dumbest talent. And then we went to Larry H. Miller Theaters, and right before the movie would start, we played these little previews. And I'll show you a couple of the commercials, which you'll be able to tell we did not spend a lot of money on. But these are actual employees. And there's usually sound, but I don't think I'm plugged in on the sound, so it's fine. So when you saw that, people are like, okay, I could work there. I can do that. Here's another one. Super inexpensive campaign, super effective. And there was about 30 of these, and they were really fun. But again, everything we did, we tried to do it cheap and think it out of the box, because that's the best way to do your business. We decided we wanted to hire people from certain companies, so we went into their bathroom stalls and put, if you're reading this right now, you're clearly a good multitasker. It just so happens we're looking to hire multitaskers, so who are also awesome. And then we have the numbers there, right? It's like finding the people in the places they are, getting creative with that. We decided we were in this cul-de-sac in this complex, that was our corporate headquarters, and there was these other companies in the cul-de-sac that we thought, man, let's try to hire from right there, right? They're used to coming here anyway, and good companies. So we had people hold the sign, shame on you for not applying at MetaConnect, now hiring, which is not illegal as long as someone physically holds the sign the whole time. P.S. We know because the cops got called on us. Just don't tie it to a tree or you're toast, right? But again, it was really just getting creative in the things we did. Instead of paying these recruiters 35% of someone's first year salary, these were things that got us people for a lot cheaper, right? And it brought in people who had a good sense of humor too. There was one company we bought that had an RV. It was this big RV from like the 1970 Winnebago something. It was horrible, but the company had it. And so we were like, we can't just waste this. What are we going to do with an RV? So we repurposed it, and we had it wrapped into a mobile hiring center. And we would drive it to companies where we thought they had really good staff that we might want to hire. And we had people in black suits, like men in black, handing out now hiring cards as people came out to go to lunch. Super effective, right? So repurpose everything. The next thing I want to talk about is communication, and this is probably the most important area I'm going to hit on today, in my opinion, besides the goal poster, which we're coming back to. First of all, there's a lot of things about communication that are different with men and women. It's harder for men to talk about this, right? Because they get nervous, they'll offend a woman, so I'm a woman, I can talk about it. So we are different in the way we communicate, men and women, especially in our personal lives. But when it comes to business, there's actually some barriers that are broken where the same things that would apply to men apply to women executives. But this is a little experiment that was done about men and women's communication where they brought a bunch of men and women together and they put them in a big auditorium. And they said, now wait here until we take you to the next room. And then a little bit later, they took them into this next room and they had a test form, and there was 2 questions on it. Number 1 was, what can you tell us about the people around you? And number 2 is, how many exes were there in the room and where were they located? Okay, so on the first one, the women knew everything. They knew everything about the people around them. The men knew nothing, okay? On the second question, the women had no idea where the exits were, how many there was, but the men in the room knew exactly how many exits there were and exactly where they were located. Okay, they did a bunch of these types of experience, and what they kind of came down and realized is men, before men can ever engage in a conversation, and this tip applies to executive women too, but for the rest, and let me give an example with the men in the room. If your wife comes up to you and says, can we go shopping Saturday? What happens? Who's married? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, does that like take you into a dark place, a little scary? Or if she comes up and says,
you and your friend?
Or if she comes up and says, can we talk? Yeah. Terrified, right? Like this black hole of death, like sucks him in. However, if your wife comes up to you and says, hey, on Saturday, can you run to Costco with me? There's this one item we're going to buy. It'll take us 5 minutes when we're done. You can go play video games with your buddies. Look how happy he is. He's like, I'm happy to help, right? No problem. Okay? They realize that before men can engage, they have to know, number one, is this going to be painful? Okay? Is it going to be painful? Number two, how long is this going to take? And number three is when you're done talking, what do you want from me? If you can tell a man those three things right up front, he will be engaged and helpful. Okay, that's going to save a lot of marriages, ladies, trust me. But the same thing applies in business to women, executives, big time. Okay, if you try to cold call someone and make a sales call and you're like, hey, how's your day going? As soon as someone says that to me, I'm like, oh, it's like the air's left the room. But if someone calls and says, hey, I know you're really busy, I just need 2 minutes of your time, and when I'm done, I'm just going to ask you for this one thing. Okay, go ahead, I'm here. You got my attention. Okay, those will help you so much. People need to know, is it painful? How long is it going to take? And when you're done, what do you want from me? So all you married ladies in the room, go home and try this on your husbands. It totally works like a charm. Okay? There's a lot of other differences between men and women. For example, women walk in front of a mirror and what do? Tear ourselves apart, right? Everything's too big, not right, not hanging like it's supposed to hang, all these things. Men walk in front of a mirror and what do? Dude, I'm looking good. Doesn't matter how bad they're looking good, right? The other thing that's different about this is that women, if you tell us, well, if we tell you, we love you, okay? If we say, this is my husband right here, if I say to him, honey, I love you, and you're super good looking, in his mind, I love him and he's super good looking for the next 50 years unless I say otherwise. Until I say otherwise, he's hanging on to that, okay? With women, we're a little different. Every night, guess what happens, men? We go to bed, and we wake up, we are ugly, fat, and unlovable. And it is now your job to convince us that we are lovable and attractive and all these wonderful things. And by the end of the day, sometimes you get there, but guess what? We're going to bed that night, and we're going to wake up again tomorrow, ugly, fat, and unlovable. You got to start again. And that is the difference between men and women. However, when it comes to business, men need to hear it just as much as women do every single day. For whatever reason, men come home from work, they wake up the next morning, and they're like, does my boss think I'm good? Am I doing a good job at work? Are people pleased with me? They're just like women at work. Does that make sense? But it is true, they need that same validation, and they need it consistently. The women always did need it, right? We always needed it. But the men, they need it in work settings big time, because that's their validation. Okay, so it's really important to communicate consistently with the people around you at work, both men and women. All right, and so one of the things I realized as we got bigger, we went from 70 people to several thousand people. All of a sudden, you have no idea what people's names are, but everybody knows yours. And what happens is when you're not communicating, the further you get out from you, people have learned a little trick, which is, knowledge appears to be power. So if I pretend like I know what the boss thinks, everyone thinks I'm in the know, now it looks like I have a lot of power in this company. Right? And a lot of times it ain't true, and it's not even what you're thinking is the boss. So the further it gets from you, the more room you leave for gossip and rumor mill if you don't represent who you are to everyone directly. Okay, so I learned I had to communicate and I had to do it fast because otherwise it was all over the map. And I was like, how do I do this? We're in 4 different locations and 2 countries. And so I decided every day to start doing a blog to my employees. It was started as a little peep to the tweets, but it got a little bigger over time. But every night before I would go to bed, I would literally consistently write a little blog to my employees. And it was not some, I'm your boss and I'm so great and no. It was like, dude, I screwed up at this decision today. I totally messed up. Here's the mistake I made. Here's what I've got to do to fix it and not repeat it again. Or it could be, hey, here's something I'm really struggling figuring out how to handle this issue. Does anyone have any good ideas? Like, it was really real. Some days it was like, hey, don't put your jeans on right out of the dryer because that's like seriously damaging to your self-esteem. Like, it could be anything. It was just very, very real. When my husband made a mistake, I was blogging about it, so everybody knew. By the way, great way to keep your man in line. But keep it consistent every day, and I had to do it every day so they would know to count on it. 5 days a week, never missed a day. Started that blog in 2010. And the company financials From the time I started that blog and started communicating daily to the time we exited, if you saw those ramps, it was unbelievable to watch what it did to our profit margin. Not because we changed anything else, but because every day I was communicating and they knew exactly what was going on all the time. It was also a great place to share values and things. Make it bi-directional. We had a discussion board where they could go in and now comment back to me, which was a little terrifying at first because I thought, what if they say, you know, we hate Amy, she's a terrible boss, right? But I realized if people are gonna say that, they're saying it anyway. And isn't it better if you know so you can address it and do something about it than if you have no idea it's being said? So it is a little scary, right? But if you open it up like that, it gives you the ability to improve and change too and grow over time. So it's really important to know what's going on and be bi-directional. Make it inclusive. One of the smartest things we did was to start an idea board where anyone in any position in the company could come up with ideas and post them, and then everybody else could vote on those. And the best ideas would float to the top. And it was really cool because people that were not in a department would solve problems. Like we had one guy that was in a security department or something, and we had a department finance issue. We posted the issue, and some guy that you never would have expected to come up with a solution did. And it was like, whoa, because they were able to think out of the box, right? So, and it's so fun because then everybody's ideas, they get shared and people start to feel good about that. And they feel like they're involved. Make it personal. You know, when MetaConnect, when our customers logged in, originally they'd see this little stock photo girl that we paid for on Shutterstock, and it was some random person with their customer services name and email. And we decided, let's make it personal. So we started putting the actual picture of their account managers on the thing. So they'd log in and now they saw a face. So that they knew this is the person I'm talking to on the phone. Well, then we decided, you know, you got to kind of make it fun because everyone's logging in every day. And the reason I like Google is because every day it changes. It's kind of fun to go see what they've done with the Google homepage. So the customer service managers used to go in and they'd put on their little costumes, and every day you'd log in, there'd be a new little fun picture that had something to do with Marshmallow Day or whatever, you know, Monday Coffee Mug Day, but it made it fun. And clients started to engage, and they started to send things like, oh, that was such a great thing. I love that. The next thing we did is we had to make it relevant to people. You know, how many of you guys get, like, no offense to the airlines, like Delta Airlines newsletters, right? Like, do you read them ever in your email? No, because why? Because we don't care. Because they're not, like, nothing to do with our life right now. Okay, well, that was the same as MetaConnect. We're sending out these healthcare technology newsletters to people and nobody was opening them. So I was like, dude, we gotta try something different. Let's just bag this and make it something relevant. Something not even to do with healthcare or technology, for heaven's sakes. So we decided to do a little pilot program. We started a new blog. The first one we put out was like food and football. And it was to all the men out there that were customers, how to get your wife to watch sports with you. Tell her about the personal lives of the players. So then we send them out. This one's dating this Kardashian, and this one's doing this. This one cheated on his wife and had to buy this diamond ring, and guess what? All of a sudden, clients started reading our newsletter. And not only were they reading it, they were forwarding it to their friends. And so that was getting out there. We'd have like a little easy recipe, like how to make great stuffing. It's stovetop, add a little fresh celery at the end. Everyone thinks it's homemade. You look like a genius, right? So we're sending out these tips to them. We did things on the best Valentine's Day to take your spouse on. Nothing to do with MetaConnect. But guess what? We made them feel good. And they loved it. And all of a sudden, clients that weren't even using us yet started calling and saying, hey, I got your newsletter. That was awesome. Can I come and get a demo from you guys of your services? And our business started to grow. Okay, you got to make it relevant. Make it meaningful. We bought these blank cards for all the employees, and we encouraged them to send meaningful handwritten notes. Most valued thing when it comes to anyone, they've done all these studies on this, the most valuable thing that people hang on to forever is a personal handwritten note. Not a typed note, a handwritten note. Okay, it's more valuable than giving someone a raise, is a handwritten note. It's the one thing that we all hang on to. I've got a box at home of every handwritten card. I couldn't tell you what I got from most of my gifts. Well, except for the Bentley I got for my birthday one year, which was awesome. But other than that, most of the things I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but that one box of letters I've always treasured, right? Write handwritten cards. And it really made people start to send things back and forth, and these bonds were getting formed, which is customer service, which is relationships. Okay? And all of a sudden, that company grew from this company with these one shirts to being employees that wanted to have MCG stuff all over the place. And they're like, we want all this stuff. And I said, I'm not going to pay for it. And they're like, well, we'll pay for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, why would you pay for stuff that said our company name on it? That's right. Because they were so proud of this culture they belonged to. And so I asked them for ideas, and on the discussion board, they had like 153 ideas within the first hour of me asking the question. And they wanted, Ephraim wanted MCG belt buckles for the derby and the rodeo. And I mean, we had all baby onesies and all this stuff. They bought $46,000 worth of stuff within the first like couple months of being live at cost. And they're walking around town everywhere with MCG stuff on because they were really proud of this culture they belonged to. Made a huge impact on the company. And those are the things that made the employees feel good. And as they felt good, they made the clients feel good. And as the clients felt good, our business grew. And the referral business grew. And as we owned our mistakes, it grew. And as our integrity was there and people knew it and our reputation was there, it grew. And all those things are what led to us having a $377 million exit, which was like awesome, right? So gotta love that. Couple of tips I want to give you guys and wrap up here. The first one I want to ask you guys, how many of you guys have asked you if you were lucky would say you felt like you were lucky? Okay. There was a study done. They brought a bunch of people in, had them fill out an application, and on it said, do you consider yourself a lucky person, yes or no? That was one of the questions. And then they sent them into the next room to do a test. And in the test, they had a magazine with pictures in the magazine and the newspaper. And they said, count those up, come and turn in the number it is, and that's part of your test you're taking here. Well, the people that had marked they thought they were lucky, when they got to the second page, saw that under the picture it said, there's like 70-something pictures in this newspaper, lay it down, go collect a $100 bonus. The people that did not say they were lucky ended up counting all the pictures. There's a whole bunch of these studies. Stuart Weitzman is the doctor that did them if you want to go read about them. But what they found was that when people believe that they're lucky, they generate their own good fortune because they're constantly looking for the good. When I get on an airplane and I sit next to a stranger, I'm a lucky person. Like, I'm like super lucky. So when I sit next to someone, I'm like, dude, I'm lucky, therefore you are going to bring something lucky into my life, so I need to get to know you because I don't know why I'm with you, but clearly it's for my benefit. So I want to learn from that person, right? And I'm constantly looking for the good in every situation. When something goes bad in my mind, I don't go, oh, this just fell apart. I'm like, oh, there must be something better I was supposed to have instead. Right? And all of a sudden I'm looking for the better, and it really generates its own good fortune. Network yourself. Don't be afraid to talk to people. That was one of the hardest things for me. I was a female in a technology world at a time that no women were in tech. Heck, today it's still really low, but back then it was like nobody. The only girls at the consumer show in Vegas were like the booth babes that were hired. So it was super awkward to be like the only female down there, right, that was in business. But I would always feel really insecure, like I'm this girl that can't talk to anyone. I remember being at an event once and someone came up to me and I would sit there all quiet and someone came up and they're like, hi, how are you doing? It's so good to have you here. Tell me a little about yourself. And I was like, oh, I love this person. Like in my mind, I was like, thank you, because I was so grateful that someone made me feel comfortable. But driving home that day, I realized, I bet there's a lot of other people in that room that were just like I was, that are thinking, please someone come and talk to me and make me feel comfortable. So from that day forward, I was like, I'm gonna go out of my way to be that person that makes other people feel comfortable. And you know what? I've never once had someone offended when I'm like, hey, it's so good to meet you. People love that, right? What's offensive about that? Network yourself. Don't be afraid to go talk to people. No one's gonna be offended that you smiled and said hello to them. Okay, it's really important. Have the courage to put yourself out there because it gives other people courage too. The other thing is put yourself in the running. I had an employee that was working for me in our records processing department, and it was someone who had just started, and we had this position that was posted for the top manager of that department, high-level position. And we posted it, and I got all these applications, and I noticed that one of them came from internal, and I'm like, well, that's weird. I would normally not get an internal employee's application without knowing who they were. The name didn't mean anything to me at the time. And I was like, who is this guy? And they had to go do some research, and my executives came back, and they're like, oh, he just started in our records processing. And I'm like, wow, that took some courage to apply as the top dog when there was like no experience there, right? Now that person didn't get the job that time, but every time we posted a position, that guy's name was in my head, and I'd be like, hey, what's he up to? What's he up to? What's he doing these days? And eventually, within a couple years, that guy was running the entire department. Now, that would never have happened if that guy didn't put himself in the running. Okay? Sometimes when you put yourself in the running, it's not because you're going to get it, but you're going to get noticed, and getting noticed is going to lead to something later. Super critical. When my son was starting out at Alta High School, he was still in junior high, and they put out a thing that they were running for student body president of Alta High, and I was like, hey, you should run. And he's like, why, what is it? And I'm like, oh, it's no big deal. It's like this little thing, just go run. Alta High School's huge, right? It's this massive high school. He comes back from his first meeting, and he's like, first of all, you are a liar. That was a really big deal. I'm not doing that. And I'm like, yes, you are. It'll be fun. I'm like, do it just for the fun of it. Don't do it to win. Just do it for fun. So he did. Now, he didn't win, but he ended up knowing so many people his freshman year of high school, and he had such a great experience just because he put himself in the running, and by the time he was a senior, he was their senior student body senator for the school. Now, he didn't do it to win, he did it for the experience. Put yourself in the running, because you just don't know what getting noticed is going to lead to. Okay? Avoid negative people. My dad's favorite comment is when you lie down with dogs, you get fleas. In business, if you are negative, if you are seen hanging out with negative people, you will be branded as a negative person. Okay, and that is going to hold you back, I promise you. If you think your boss doesn't notice who you're going to lunch with, you're wrong. We notice all that stuff, okay? And we pay attention. And if someone's hanging with negative people, instantly in our minds, even if you're not negative, in our mind, it's not worth the risk. So do not hang out with negative people. Be likable. People are going to do business with people they like. On a Friday night, do you want to go hang out with Eeyore? Because he is super depressing little black rain cloud. But Tigger is like fun, and you know you're gonna have a little party, so it's always fun to be around Tigger. Be the person people like. That's super important in your careers. Be likable. Okay, this one we don't have time for this story, so I'm gonna have to skip this story, but I will tell you quickly. It's a hilarious story. I got married 9 years ago. Okay, never, I'm gonna tell the 2-second story. I'm gonna try to pare this down. It's never as good, short, but it's a funny story. Got married 9 years ago, right? Never shoveled snow in my life because there's an elders quorum and I was a single mom, and that's the awesome part about living in Utah. So never had to shovel snow. I got married. It was in New Year's Eve, snow everywhere. My husband comes home and says, where's the shovel? We don't have a shovel. I'm doing the fast version. We don't have a shovel. And he's like, what do you mean you don't have a shovel? I'm like, well, because everyone does it for us, right? And he's like, well, I guarantee they're not coming over now because, I'm here. And so he grew up on a farm in Idaho, and he's a big-time outdoor worker guy. And so he said, well, we need a shovel. And I was like, well, let's just get a blower. And he says, no, because our son needs the value of work. And I was like, okay, well, then fine. So he leaves with my son to go do errands, and I'm like, then I'm going to get the best snow shovel out there, right? So I get online, best snow shovel ever, and something comes up called the Wovel, and I read about it, Time Magazine Invention of the Year, Bob Vila endorsed it, it was like the best thing ever, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, I'm going to overnight this thing, but it was super expensive, and it was really expensive to overnight, but I was like, being the entrepreneur, solvent woman that I am, I was like super proud, and I overnighted it. Okay, so it gets like, my husband comes home from shopping with my son, and I'm like, hey, I got you a snow shovel. It's going to be here tomorrow, but I had to spend like $100 overnight. He's like, what? $100 overnight? It's like a $10 shovel at Home Depot. What are you smoking? And I was like, well, but this is the Wovel. And he's like, oh, whatever it is, send it back. And I'm like, no, you can't send. So of course I'm the newlywed, right? And so I'm a strong, independent woman at work, but at home I'm like, but baby, the tears, and then we're newlyweds. Still that first week of marriage where he has to keep me happy. And I like ended another week later, but still that first week. So I was like, you just have to try it, baby. There's like an instructional DVD. He's like, oh my gosh. So this is a picture of the Wovel. Listen, this thing is legit, real product. If you don't believe me, you can Google it. The wheel makes so your back doesn't hurt, flicks the snow. I still contend if he had ever watched the DVD, he would have loved the product. But long story short, he was like, I'm not going to try it. I said, you're going to try it one time because I spent like $400 on this thing. And he's like, that's more than a blower. But that guy, he said, I'm waiting till it's dark because no self-respecting man is ever going to be caught dead doing that. Not happening. So he waits till it's dark, goes out there with my little son. They're out there in the driveway. My son comes in cracking up because he's like, dude, a car came down the street. Dad dropped that thing and ran. Before I could even get out there with his hot cocoa, being the good wife I was, making the hot chocolate and bringing it out to him, that thing was disassembled, never to be used again. My son actually told that story. My son told that story in church, and a week later we had like all these $10 shovels on our front porch with bows from all the men in our ward that were like feeling sorry for him. But like I said, didn't watch the instructional DVD, would have been a different experience. The point of the story is though, that look, when you got to trust the people that have the experience. I'm not a girl that snow shoveled. I knew nothing about it, right? Knew nothing. I might have done my research online and read stuff, but if you really want to know what's up, go talk to the people that have done it, that have been there, that have done the mistakes, that have learned from it, right? Those are the people that can teach you, and those are the ones that can make it different for you. So don't go to your friends and ask them for advice on how to do a business if they have never done a business. I mean, you can hear their ideas, but you need to go to people that have been there and done it. And those are the people to talk to, okay? By the way, they now make a clip-on thing so you don't get the snow on you. It's a little plastic cover for your Wovel. Okay, favorite quote in the history of time is this one. Don't ever give up. As you guys go through hard things, don't give up. Because everything will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. That will get you through every bad breakup, bad business deal, everything in the world, if you just remember that. It's not the end. Okay, you guys are young, you have a lot of life ahead. And never, in closing, underestimate the power of the goal poster. Remember that goal poster I made and put it on the wall, 23 years old? Didn't look at it again for like 7 years. 7 years later, I'm moving offices and I looked up, and that goal poster, everything on there had happened. I was on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. I won Entrepreneur of the Year. I met Steve Ballmer because Gates retired. Totally still counts, by the way. All those things had happened, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. And that was the first time I really clicked in my head. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Still didn't actually equate it to the goal poster necessarily. I was like, that's just a cool coincidence, right? Then my dad and mom got called to go serve a mission in Africa in the temple there. And my dad was like, hey, listen, you need to come out and I'm going to seal you in the temple in Africa to your new husband. I'm like, oh, that'd be sweet, but I don't even have a boyfriend. And I'm running a huge company. I got 2 little kids, not going to happen. Dad told me to put it on the poster, so I did. 6 months later, I was in Africa getting married to that guy. Okay? So now I was like, like, dude, I need to make a bigger goal poster. So there's something going on with this. So I did. I sat down 9 years ago and I made a new goal poster. And on that goal poster, I was like, okay, I want to sell my company for a ton of money. And I want to be able to invest in entrepreneurs. And I want to start a charity that empowers people to be self-reliant. And I want to go to 7 wonders of the world. Apparently there's more than 7, but this is the postcard I found, so we're just counting these 7, right? And the plane, because like, who doesn't want the plane, right? So that was my next goal poster. Over the next 9 years, let me show you some of the things that happened. Oh. Not planned because of the poster. Had a brother living in Rome, so we ended up going to Rome. I had an office in India, so I was there. Went to Brazil with one of the boards I serve on. My brother then moved to Amman, Jordan, so we went to Petra. Again, not because of the poster. These things just happened by nature. Okay. The next thing is I sold the company for a ton of money, and I was able to start Rees Capital to invest in other entrepreneurs. I was able to start a charity called the iPop Foundation to help people become self-reliant. And I got my life back with my family that I really wanted that time. That's my 2 kids, by the way. And so now I was like, oh, gotta go back one. I was like, okay, I sold my company, what am I gonna do? So I had made this goal poster that was like actually a huge PowerPoint presentation goal poster of my dream home. Okay, I'm not gonna show the whole PowerPoint because it would be a whole hour, but this was just a couple slides from the poster I had done, the PowerPoint of my dream house, Mariah Carey's closet, because like, come on ladies, right? And these were some of the photos I pulled together, okay? This is the actual house I built. Okay, I know. Can we take a moment of silence for the closet? Because I'm just saying. Right?
Ties have a little bit of space.
No, he wouldn't share with me. He said I would infringe on his space. So he has his own closet. He thought I would infringe. But then the point is, so now my husband was like, you got to make another goal poster because you've like been accomplishing all these things. And I was like, I don't even know what to put on it now because now I'm kind of scared because anything that goes on that poster, dude, I don't know to happen. My daughter put on her first one, get lost. The child's been lost her entire life. So don't mess with the mojo of the poster. That's critical. But I sat down and I started to just spec out a new poster, right? And I thought, okay, and I thought, well, I never did finish my college, and it always bugged me. It really bugged me that I didn't finish because I just wish I could have. We didn't have the money back then. I had no choice. And I told my husband, I said, I'm not going to put all that on there because now I go teach at the master's program at the colleges, and I'm not going to go back to school. Like I'm going to be a grandma in 6 months, which is really cool. But anyway, I was like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, just stick it on there. You don't know how it's going to come about, right? And so I started this new poster. I want all these grandbabies. I wanted to see both my kids married in the temple, and I thought a European vacation would be kind of fun and some of those things. So I hadn't even finished the poster. This is kind of all I got to, and I got a call about 4 weeks after that I was getting an honorary PhD. So I was like, dude, that's so cool, come on. You can just call me Dr. Amy. My kids refuse to, but someday I'm gonna make them. But that for me was a really big emotional deal, right? And then when it came to that European adventure over that next year, these are all the places in Europe my family and I traveled. Again, not necessarily because of the poster, it just turned out that way, right? That's the actual proof we were there. And my son got married in the temple. My daughter's still single and available, so if anyone knows the same, super cute. The end of the day, what I've learned from everything I've been through, from that girl that dropped out to where I am now, I learned that in our head what we see is that little crayon sketch at the top. That's what you guys see today as you see here. Don't limit what's in your head, because what God sees is a masterpiece. Dee and I covered it up to make it appropriate for the school. Cleaned it up. Just saying. But I'm just saying, like, honestly, don't limit what you guys can do. And now the goal poster, is it worth at least just trying to make one? I want all of you guys, I'm going to challenge you guys all to go home and make a poster. It's really important. If nothing else happens today, do that. I still blog 5 days a week. When I sold the company, that was the one thing the employees wanted, is they said, well, you still write your blog. And I said, you don't have to read it anymore, I'm not your boss. And they wanted it anyway. So I still blog 5 days a week about life lessons I'm learning, business lessons, things that have helped me succeed. And that's where you can find the blog. And that's how you can contact me. So if I can ever help any of you guys with anything, let me know. And I want you to all take pictures of the poster and send them to me, because I'm digitally keep files on people that have had posters made and what's happened in their life. And someday I'll put it into a big book, but you'll die when you hear the stories. Someday, if I had time to tell you someday, of people's stories they've had that are just like mine. So I know I went way over time, and I apologize. Any questions really quick, because I know we have to be done. Any questions? Yeah.
So what's your next big goal?
Well, so I'm writing a book. I write for Forbes and the Huffington Post, but I'm trying to take everything I've written and compile it into a book. And then I also want to do a book on the goal posters because of some of the crazy cool experiences other people have shared. I wrote in Forbes about the goal poster and went worldwide, and I got posters from all over the world. And now stories come like a year later, 2 years later, people send their stories. And it's just been really, for me, it's been so inspirational to read how it's affected their lives. Because, you know, I wondered if it's just me it worked for, but it's not. It works for everybody. Anybody else? And I'm going to be a grandma in August. It's a boy. I just found out last night. I'm so excited. So, but I'm going to call it Glamma, because I'm way too cool to be a grandma yet. So. Anybody else? Yes?
Can you go back to the slide right after you said about people being lucky? They have like 4
Yes. Sorry. All right, there you go. Anybody else? You guys, thanks for letting me come today. It's really fun to be down here, so.
We'd like to give you a token of appreciation.
Oh, that's so cool.
Make you an honorary Thunderbird.
Super cool.